Super, we're live. I'll do my off-the-cuff introduction. So our third Coles Gallery Artist Talk. So we've got Clifford Stead and Martyn Hayes, who are both graduates of Jacob Kramer.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Yes. So Leeds born and bred.
Yeah.
As well. And Clifford, as you all know, no educating anybody, is the co-creator of Leeds Sketch Club, or Sketch Club Leeds.
Sketch Club Leeds.
And Martyn
He's a member.
He's a member, yes.
He's one of my students.
He's been roped in to show some of his work.
and yeah, this is the exhibition.
I cajoled him into this against his will. Yeah,
it's
So go easy on me.
Yeah.
I will.
It's a good process, isn't it? Just sort of talking
Yeah.
about your work, thinking about what you've made, and getting things together in your thoughts. And it helps me, even when people just ask me what's all about. Who wants to go first?
I can start, then you can tell me to shut up.
Right, you start.
Yes.
Can I have a little podcast? So, yeah, thanks for coming. And I've never done one of these before, although in my professional life I'm a designer, graphic designer, and I do talks, or I present my work all the time, but it's in a different sort of format. And this kind of thing is new to me, so please bear with me. And it kind of leads me into how I got into drawing, because I think being an old school designer, when I got into design, that's the only thing I could do was draw. So it was a matter of, when you started work, your portfolio was all drawings you'd done in college. It was life drawings, it was architectural drawings that we used to do, it was drawings of visuals and stuff like that. So drawing was part of my life, and I always think that I consider the drawing as almost like it saved me, because it kind of gave me a career. I wasn't very good at anything else at school apart from drawing, and I felt like it gave me a start in life, it gave me a career, and it's given me a career for 30 years. And I think that over the years, we used to draw everything from typography to visuals of people climbing scaffolding and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually all the computers came in, and we stopped drawing. We started drawing on computers and visualising on computers and getting other people to do visualising for you. And that kind of drawing kind of got smaller and smaller, and so I stopped drawing altogether, really. And then a few years ago, I thought to myself, I travelled around quite a lot with my job and started going to different countries and things. I'm on holiday and stuff like that, and I thought, I've got a bit more time, so I started doing little sketchbooks. So what I thought I'd do is take you on a bit of a journey of my sketching history, from when I started drawing on holiday, like everybody does that likes drawing. I always get a sketchbook out and do a bit of drawing, to a mindful thing where I feel like when I got to 50, I had a few challenges in my life, and I felt like my drawing came along and saved me again. It kind of gave me some purpose other than my job to do something else. So I started drawing again. But I found it really difficult to get into it. Anyway, so I'll show you some of my early sketchbooks, and I thought I'd pass them around. Do you think that'd help if I pass them around? So these are some of my early sketchbooks. So like I said before, I've just picked a few, just one or two out, which it's kind of like just drawing ad hoc when I'm sat on the beach, like everybody does. So, and I've always tried to put a little narrative into my drawings. I like narrative as much as I can. I try to build a little bit of a narrative into it, and when I see something like this, I kind of think, yeah, that'd be great to draw, and see if I can sketch it. So I'll keep passing these round, and you know, we'll get those ones. So I've always kept a sketchbook. I worked in New York for a while, and I had this I did some drawings when I was in New York. And
Perfect format. Perfect format for that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's I've got a few others in here that are a bit like that as well.
I recognise that.
You know, like street signs, just sign cafes and things like that, which these books are great for.
Yeah.
So I noticed the one we've got on display with the exhibition is Moleskine one. Do you have a favourite brand of?
Yeah, well, these are all Moleskine books. Yeah, I think maybe that's one of their. I don't know whether that's one of their like just paperback ones, but I used to like Moleskine because I like equipment. I like bits of equipment, so I collect it and stuff. So that's a drawing I did when I was in Singapore. You know, the dragon on the beach, on the seafront, whatever it is. I don't know if you've seen it. So yeah, so these books are kind of. Holidays to Marrakesh and stuff, just doing quick sketches and stuff. So yeah, that's how I kind of saw my drawing as something I did just in between doing other stuff. Anyway, like I said, I got to a feeling like I wasn't drawing anymore. I didn't do very much drawing, only when I was on holiday, and I felt like it was almost like I wanted to do more drawing, but I was scared of it a little bit, and I wanted everything to look amazing when I drew it, and I found constricted by that.
Yeah.
So I started. The firm I worked for, they moved into Leeds, so I used to drive everywhere, and then I found myself on the train, and I thought to myself, I've got this bit of time in my life where I don't do anything. I could actually do some drawing, but I didn't want to, because it was people sketching, and I think people sketching is one of the hardest things to do from life. Like a building doesn't move, and I can sit there and draw a building, but people move around and are difficult to draw. But actually, when they sat on the train, they don't move very much. So I thought, well, actually, I started doing that, and then I didn't want to go into a big way, so I get a book and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, actually, I'll start drawing on my ticket, and it's almost like a little, it's that narrative idea again. It's kind of a narrative of your journey, you know. So it's a record of your journey.
Yeah.
So I started. I got a felt permanent marker type thing. After a bit of work, and I started drawing people on the train. Oh, my tickets.
Did they know you were drawing?
No, they didn't. Actually, it was quite funny. It was quite funny. I used to try and draw for people. I got quite good at it actually. So start drawing you over there and miss out the first row. So when you were looking at people, they didn't really notice you because you're looking through somebody else. You know, which is quite good. So I started drawing, and most of these drawings, I've got them all in. A lot of them in here. I've got hundreds of them to be fair. But I've just picked a few out which are my favourites. So it just a lot of them tend to be people with their eyes shut, looking down. So, but I tried to get detail in and some of the character of the people into my drawings. And because they're so small, and I think that's one tip that I've kind of picked up over the years, is if you start small, you can actually do, rather than starting with such a big piece of paper, actually having a really small piece of paper actually really helps to be able to draw and not feel intimidated by it. So these are some of my tips. Please come in.
Hi, what is it about?
Talking about. It's just me talking about sketching. So I've just recapped that I started drawing on tickets on my train journey, and it was 8 minutes. So I used to call it my 8 minute sketch. From getting on to getting off, it was 7 or 8 minutes. So there's some of these. So these are people basically looking down. These are some of my favourite ones. This is a double journey. So I did like a little double sketch of this guy sat.
I suppose with it being on the ticket, it takes some of that preciousness you're talking about of it having to be perfect. You've already got sort of this as a ticket. It's more free, and it's not a blank page in a really nice sketchbook. Or
I think that's it. It's one of those things where you get a sketchbook and it's this beautiful sketchbook that's cost you £10, and you're thinking, I don't know where to start. I don't want to do a really crap drawing on the first page, and then they feel, what I think's a really crap drawing, because everybody shouldn't think that.
I call it blank page syndrome, where you sit down with just a blank sheet of paper and just don't know what to do. You've got the pens, you've got the paper, but then it's like that gets around that problem.
It does, and it was really, really quick as well. And then I started kind of getting into the Instagram, and posting my stuff on Instagram. So what I tried to do is I tried to photograph my ticket and the person in the background and post it on Instagram. And people started liking them, and I've never had that before, because I never used to go on Instagram, never used to post my work on Instagram. And a lot of people have, an opinion about Instagram, whether it's good or bad, but it's actually been really good for me, because people have always been really kind and said really great stuff about my work and encouraged me to do more. And I've always thought that was a brilliant thing. So yeah, this was a double one, and then this guy's asleep, so I've got quite a few of those with this guy sort of falling asleep. I really like this one. This was a guy looking at his own reflection in the mirror, in the glass, because it was dark outside, so he was like looking at himself in the, so I thought it was really, really nice. And then a lot of people, backs of people's heads with headphones on. So I thought I'd bring them along so you could have a look. I've kept them in my original folder, so you could have a look through those if you want. So I started doing that, and that kind of, as technology advances, when you travel on the train a lot, you got plastic cards. I got plastic cards to travel, so me sort of ticket drawing came to an end really. I had to use a plastic card, and I thought, well, I feel a bit more confident drawing, which I think is one of the big things with drawings and sculpture or any sort of art. It's about confidence and building your own confidence up in your own work. And I think that I started doing that through the ticket drawings, and then sort of create little books, start getting little books that I could keep in my top pocket all the time with a pen and just draw when I saw people really quickly, so I could do it standing up, sitting down, crouching in the train or anywhere. So I started doing that. So and then I started, which I suppose is the premise of my talk really, it's about this progression of my work and experimenting with different things in drawing. So I started drawing like drawings that didn't really finish, because I think all my professional career is all about the absolute finished, polished things. I used to be a designer. Well, I am still a designer. But it's all about having a really finished piece of work at the end of it. I do a lot of life drawing as well, and I used to go to a life drawing class at Leeds College of Art and Design actually, before they shut them all down. And the first time I went, I had to finish a complete piece. I drew it all out and finished it all and everything. It was coloured in and all that. Right, I've done it, that's it. For sale! And the guy and the tutor was brilliant. He came up to me and he said, why have you finished it? You don't need to finish everything. This is about enjoying what you're doing, enjoying it, and just enjoying the process. You don't have to finish everything that you do. So I kind of started doing that with these really, and trying different things out about framing as well. So picking out different subjects by using a different thickness of pen. So I'd use like a thin pen, and then use a thicker pen to draw around the person, just to create a frame around them. Because that really helps. If you're doing quite a complex drawing and you want something to pick out, if you do that, you draw a frame around it, it really draws your eye into it.
Well, you've got some of the big one, haven't you? I'm sure I've seen that in the big sketchbook. There you go.
I think it's about really picking little techniques up. I went to see a lecture. He was a product designer. Yeah, start putting a frame around something. Just immediately pulls your eye into it, and it just makes it feel a little bit. I don't know. picking out bits that you. And I kind of sort of picked up little tips and stuff. I went to see a lecture by a product designer, and he was showing us all his sketches that he did, and he presented to clients and stuff. And he said he always preferred to show sketches because they look like he's thinking. And how he did it was he drew a thick black line around the ones that he wanted to stand out, to frame them on the page so it draws your eye into them. So I started doing things like that really. Adding a little bit more detail into things where I've got more time, you know, where I had a little bit longer train journey, I had a little bit more detail into his beard. So it's all really about trying to experiment. And then I decided to start using coloured pencils. And I have two styles of drawing. One is this sketchy watercolour stuff that I do, and the other is this coloured pencil style that I do, which I call my studio style because I kind of do that at home from photographs and sketches and drawings and things. But I started taking a little kit with me on the train, so I could do really quick pencil sketches of people using colour, which is another challenge. So it's for me, it was about challenging myself to do little things with my drawings. Every time I did a new drawing or a new sort of idea, I try to do that. So I'm kind of doing two things. I'm using the new style and I'm also framing it as well. So using the seats, and I call this between the seats, is this guy was, you know, kind of reading the newspaper or something, and so I thought, oh, actually, it creates this really nice frame. So I framed him behind that.
Yeah, oh yes.
Do they mind?
He didn't seem to.
Not aware of what's going on.
I got really good at it.
You'll be able to
actually,
see
sort of,
though.
really good at kind of hiding
I just imagine that, you know.
If someone was sketching you on a
Somebody
train,
say,
It's,
"Oi!"
yeah,
Probably happened.
without you even knowing it. Yeah.
I love the sort of you do the blue sort of underdrawing.
yeah.
And then those bits are left. It's almost like a shadow drawing of it.
Yeah, people really love that. It was about it's about the narrative. It's because it allowed me to draw in the rest of the landscape behind it, or the buildings and stuff, but make sure that the building that I really wanted to stand out stood out, and it didn't, you know, kind of the background didn't interrupt with it, and it creates a lot more depth and a lot more interest in the drawing. I think this is more or less my last people sketchy book, but I obviously drew them all the time. Because of the pandemic and various things, I've been on train for quite a while. Anyway, this one I like this one. This is one of my favourite ones because I feel I've always tried to make my drawings a lot looser, and this leads me into the next bit, which it's all about. For me, it's all about making my drawings feel looser and look like I haven't spent long on them. So there's a lot more kind of freedom in the way that they look, and feel a lot more spontaneous. So this one I really like because it feels like I want it to start to feel like I want my drawings to look, which are a lot freer, a lot more interesting. The line feels like you want to follow it around the page. So that's kind of one of the last ones I've done for that. So which leads me on. So I've gained a lot of confidence by doing that, and I started changing my formats of my books. I started doing a lot more outdoor drawing. So more kind of taking a book with me and getting into the habit of taking a drawing book with me everywhere I went, which is much to my wife's annoyance actually. But, so I started doing more kind of scene drawings. So you can see I've started to use that framing idea where I'll take a black line around the people in the foreground, so it pulls them out a little bit more. Started kind of building more detail into trees and things like that, putting this black. So I kind of started using the second pen a lot more with the drawings I did. And I think that's one of the things, is looking at how other people do drawings as well, which is really interesting. Taking inspiration from other people, you know, like Phil Dean and Shoreditch Sketcher. He I got all the inspiration from him, how he drew trees, you know, and the way that he filled in black. And see, by looking at the Instagram again, looking at other people's work and really sort of studying it, it builds. You can build little bits into your work that it becomes like a reflex action, and you can start doing it in your own.
I think it's unusual that most people get a sketchbook and only draw on one side. You know, like I tend to just work on one side of the page and then turn to the next one.
Yeah.
It's quite rare to see someone that goes right across the spine.
Yeah, well,
as it were.
that leads me
quite
really well
rare.
into my next thing.
Yeah.
So to Clifford's point, I started, you know, I use the whole page, and I'm using lots of things there. I'm bringing out bringing the black line to bring out the shed. I've used a sort of more of a sketchy line in the background and bringing the dog out as well. You know, so it's kind of trying to create distance in your drawings just by picking up little techniques and stuff. But I think the one thing that started interesting me more than anything was format and picking little bits to push you a little bit further. And I started using. I found a really old book that I've had for years and never really drawn in it. And the thing I liked about this was it was a completely different format to what I'm used to working with, which is much more of a landscape format. So I started doing drawings which is falling apart a bit. So they use the whole page, and it really pushes you to sort of kind of think about how and what you're going to include and what you're not going to include, and how you're going to crop things, how you're going to crop it. So this was really, really good for that, and format pushed me to be able to crop my work and think about how I was going to design it in my head before I started drawing it. So a lot of these are like that. So
were you seeking out locations which were more panoramic or landscape based? Yes. Yeah. So it's almost like the sketchbook was sort of feeding the subject, like dictating.
Yeah. So I think I've done it the wrong way around here. This was one of the first drawings I did in this book, which is basically a courtyard or something. And I started using the entire page. I've not started using watercolour at this point. But what I was doing was filling the entire page as well. So I was using the format that was in filling in the entire page, and I think I started trying to not do that. I started to try and think about. So I'm still filling the whole page here. But then I started thinking about, actually, I don't need to fill the whole page. It's about how you finish your drawing off, and that kind of designing it so it kind of fades off in the right kind of way and makes it feel like it's part of it's sat in on the page in the right kind of way. It doesn't sort of finish dead, but it fades off. So using the line work just to fade it off. But then I kind of got inspired by a guy called, he's not called this, but his kind of Instagram handle is called Captain Tom, which is he's a Canadian artist, and he does landscapes where he uses watercolour and pen. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's one of the person I really kind of look to every time I want some inspiration. But using the page to design the pictures and the format is really is something that's the thing I'm starting to do more and more now. So if I go to so this one again. So I fed my drawing out here, so the details got less and less as it's gone out, and then I've included something which I thought was quite interesting, so it'll pull your eye across. But the thing that's interesting, reason I picked this out was I did the black and white drawing in situ, and then I thought actually it was a really wet day, it was really rainy, and I was sort of thinking to myself, actually it'd be really nice if I could express that raininess of the day. I can't really do it with black line as well, so I started using watercolours to try and get that kind of feeling of mood and expression into the drawing. And I kind of got hooked on watercolours, and I kind of use watercolours in a way that is my way of doing it. It's not kind of, I don't have like a I don't know, a right way of using a watercolour. I kind of made it up and did my own thing. So yeah, so format. So this is more or less up to date really. I've got lots of other stuff, but I'll bore you all to death with everything. But this book here is my latest sketchbook.
This is the one we've all seen.
This is the sketchbook that I bring to Sketch Club.
Yeah.
And this is a drawing I did at Sketch Club with Clifford. This was when we went to the library. Again, it's about trying to find an unusual angle that tells a narrative. So this is all the massive, interesting part of it, and it was brilliant and amazing building. But I felt that if you step back into the records office, there was this kind of really interesting frame of the library, but it told the story of all these massive boxes and paper and files.
It was sat in the art,
hanging out and everything. It just kind of gave a real mood to the place, you know. So I thought it felt much more. I thought it kind of told more of a narrative about that actual building than just going and drawing the building, which is an amazing building.
There's just thousands of old photographs of Leeds going back 200 years, all in boxes. I could spend weeks up there just digging through. I mean, it's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an incredible building.
Yeah. And they're all A to Z. You can pick your street, just put a drawing, Headingley, and a street and something like that. And then there's just all these amazing photographs, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's what Sketch Club is all about, really. And I think you guys are really great at picking interesting places to go and draw, which you don't normally get to go. So this, again, demonstrates another aspect of what I was talking about before, some learning I've taken from, as I've progressed along my journey, is just that idea of framing something. And I think that drawing a landscape of Leeds is a really daunting thing. There's hundreds of buildings and all different angles and all different directions and things. If you draw the entire lot, it's just kind of totally overwhelming. So picking a small section and drawing that, but framing it within it also gives it, I think, more focus, a bit more interesting, a bit more of an interest in the drawing. And also helps you draw it and cope with it actually when you start sketching. I also do quite a bit of, I like drawing interiors of pubs and stuff, because I tend to do that, because my wife's a long-suffering drawer widow, I would say, sketcher widow. She comes along with me, and if I'm sat outside, she will only sit for an hour. So
I've
got a time limit, so I have to do a drawing in that, but which is kind of my train sketching and stuff has made me draw quickly.
Yeah,
so I try to get as much information down as I can in the hour, and I do some work afterwards. But pubs, I usually be able to sit there longer because she has a glass of wine or two, and I can sit there longer. So, which is good. So this is in Oswald. It's a bar in Oswald. And this guy kept coming in and out. He's a real character. They saw this and absolutely loved it, and I posted stuff on Instagram. They wanted like 5 copies of it, so I did 5 copies. And then right up to date, really, this is the last drawing I've done, which is the drawing we did yesterday. So I put a couple of techniques in here that I talked about. This is framing, so this is a building here, framing this, so taking this out. I framed it on the page right across the middle. I've used a black line to pick out the buildings in the foreground just to lift them out. I've used 2 different types of pen as well, which I've been experimenting with. A lot of people use fibre tip pens. Which I do use, but I have gone to using fountain pens simply because I like the fluidity of the line. And they feel a little bit kind of edgier, I think. They're just nicer to hold, and you can change the inks as well, which is interesting. I use if you're interested, I use a carbon ink, which doesn't. That's alright. I use a carbon ink, which is really, really stable. When you put it down, you can use watercolor. Literally put like gallons of water.
The thing is, you want an ink that doesn't smudge.
It never moves.
The last thing you want is to draw something beautiful and then just, oh my god, yes.
Those pens are just straightforward fountain pens. They're called Lamy. Lamy pens if you're interested. This one's
German.
they're amazing pens actually,
Yes,
really
they
great
are.
pens. They're
I used to
absolutely
have them at
bulletproof.
school.
If you wanted to start drawing with fountain pens,
We're forced in school to use them.
oh really?
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know
We
that.
need to use them in school.
So like our Parkers, use Parker.
Well, what I use is called Safari. So they're a bit more kind of aimed towards people who draw, I think, because they do lots. I think Lamy do lots of different pens. But this is my newest pen. It's a sailor pen, which is a Japanese pen, but it's got a what they call a food nib, which is a nib that actually turns up at a right angle. You can use it like a normal pen, so it gives you a kind of thin line, but you can flatten it out and it gives you a thicker line as well, so you can do two different types of line when you're drawing. Which is really interesting actually. It's a bit like kind of Russian roulette. Sometimes you're drawing it and then it'll just go really thick, and it gives it a really interesting line. And I've just started using it on here, which probably was a bit of a mistake in a drawing like this because it's so.
But you learn by mistake.
But you learn by mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I drew all this with that pen. So there's lots of kind of igglety-pigglety with lines, and then I did the main building with the Safari, which I'm really kind of comfortable using because of all the windows and stuff. And then I used just a brush pen, which are these, which is a fibre tip pen, to do the thicker lines. So I only have a really small amount of kit that I take around with me. I haven't, as in case there's a few bits down with me, but I think it's the trick is just finding what you like to do, finding a format that you like, experimenting. And just going with it really.
We'll be testing you at the end on all these pens to see how much you can handle. You'll be experts on biro.
And the cushion.
Oh yes, that's essential.
That is essential. When
You need that
when
on
you're out
the
sketching,
LNER
a
trains,
cushion
actually.
is essential.
You go on a Zoom and you need a cushion.
This is a brilliant cushion. Blows up, so it's brilliant. So a cushion and a really nice pen.
Perfect.
That's it.
Thank you very much. So wonderful to see all the sketchbooks.
Yeah.
Are you okay if I stay seated? Is that okay? No, I can move into the middle a little bit from the camera.
Oh, was it as
Right,
comfortable?
okay.
I'll have a look at it.
But certainly, I thought what I might do is, because it'd be a nice lead-in, is to just talk about Sketch Club, because that's how we met, isn't it? So I'm going to kick off with Sketch Club Leeds, which Yusuf, who runs it with me, has had an accident, changing his daughter's nappy. And his back's gone and he's in bed. So the poor lad is absolutely out of
And
action.
Jackie changing accents.
Yeah, just literally.
Not what we expected.
He literally turned on the sofa and that was it. He hasn't been able to move since. So he sort of rang me this morning. So I'm really sorry. I won't be there. But we set this. We met. He was an architect, and we met at the Holbeck Viaduct project, which was to turn the viaduct in Holbeck into the New York High Line, and he did all the designs for that. And I met him at the launch in 2016. That's how we got together. And then I didn't see him again for about 2 years, and he'd given up his job as an architect and he'd gone into drawing full time. And so I was aware of art by Arja. I'd seen, obviously, online on social media, seen all his work. And then we met up again, like you do, these coincidences, you bump into people, don't you? And this was when probably we'd had the first lockdown, and we're sort of just coming out of COVID in 2020. And I said, you know, what people really need now is to get out and do things, you know. And so we decided, we came up with this concept of every month we'd have a rolling sketch project, but not something that's tutored. We didn't want it to be something where someone's standing over your shoulder and saying that line's not right, or you're using the wrong. Because I've been to evening classes, it's terrifying. You know, there's people coming over and saying, "You can use a rubber, you know, you can do it." And it's just not very nice. And I thought we really want something quite social. And I'm because I'm into architectural stuff anyway, I do a lot of tours of Leeds, and the best angles on Leeds are actually on the rooftops. You know, I mean, you can see just here, just looking out the window. You only have to go up a short way, and you've got these incredible views. And so again, this rule of 6 came in, so we couldn't start in 2020. And so it was last year in July that we started Sketch Club. And we've done about that rain, you come to ask Roy here, and of course some of our regulars are here. But it's become it's not taken on a life of its own. And so this exhibition here, I said to Joss when he moved into here, I said, can we have April and we'll do a show? Obviously we were not expecting Russia to invade Ukraine and all this other stuff to happen. So we decided to split this exhibition and we'd actually do a Ukraine part, like a charity bit. So everything you see at that end, all the proceeds go to the Red Cross in Ukraine.
Yeah, we've made £75 so far.
Good.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. So that's what the work is there. But this is just a selection of some of our sketch clubbers. But we never intended it to be a case of, you come on a monthly basis and be under pressure to do a piece, to hang in a show. That isn't the concept. This is just something that we've done as we've gone along. It's just something extra. And so you took part in this, and we've got some of our other art. There's some of my stuff in here as well, and most of it is based on Leeds. And so every month we've got, I think next month it's the old Lewis's building. So if anyone's interested in drawing on the roof of what is now called Broadgate, it's got a new trendy name now. But we'll be up on, I didn't even know it had a park on top of trees and gardens and the kids' play area and stuff like that. So, and it's got a view looking over the Marine Centre. So that's what that's going to be. Now, I call myself Biro Guy on Instagram simply because I've always used Biros. Sometimes I sort of avoided Instagram for a long time. I thought, is it worth going on? Do I really want my real name on there? Because there are problems in the past, you get all kinds of oddballs following it. I just thought, I'll go under some kind of pseudonym of Biro. And that's basically where that's come from. And so my work basically revolves around pens. So I've sort of got 3 stages in my artistic career that all revolve around a particular pen. And so we're actually going to start, and you might remember these, the Pilot Gold marker. Did anybody use these? Yeah. And the trouble with these is if you push too hard, the whole contents will go. So and they were very expensive. So I became an expert at not destroying these within like an hour, actually buying one. And so, and the other pen I'm going to talk about that you'll see a lot in my work is a Rotring German, basically. Love these, you just pour your own ink. And again, these are a nightmare because they plug up and ink sets like concrete. So you become really good at maintaining pens.
You've got some special fluid, haven't you?
Yeah, you have to get this stuff that's like rocket fuel that you sort of soak it in overnight and it destroys all the bits in. So I basically was self-taught. I mean, I just drew as a kid, immediately, as soon as I could pick up a pen. Born in Leeds, raised in Leeds. And my early subject matter revolved around cattle and cactuses. It's all a bit bizarre. Nothing to do with buildings whatsoever. And then as I got older, I started to draw imaginary cities, imaginary places, and sort of lose myself on a big sheet of paper with a big jumble of buildings. So I'm going to kick off with my period sort of after art college, which is sort of about 1990. And so that's one of my imaginary cities. Now I'll pass these around so you can see them properly. And when I was a teenager, I used to travel a lot, and so I'd just take bits of cities all over the world and just cobble them together. And there's no plan, there was no sort of sitting down, it's going to look like that. It just happened. And if I make a mistake, I just draw over the top. I mean, that's the great thing about mixed media. just go over the top of something else. So I never had any hang-ups about creating things. And like you were saying, I did like a graphic-based art course. What was Jacob Kramer College of Art? And you were made to sit in a studio all afternoon and draw straight lines until you did a straight line. So I never used a ruler. So you were literally just, this man used to come around and shout. If line number 31 had like a little thing in it, it'd sort of tell you what. So you were so scared of this guy shouting at you, and it'd be classed as abuse now, it'd be sacked. But that's how it used to work, isn't it? I mean, you literally, you were literally just doing everything by hand. Now, when you look in that picture, there is actually a building in there that exists. I don't know if you spotted it. There is something in there that's real. All the other stuff is made up. Can you spot it? This is where I take. That's right. Yeah. So what I used to do is it would be an imaginary place, and then I would add in something that exists. But I'd just stick it in there somewhere. So my work is very much like quizzing your brain. You probably look at it and think, well, I've seen that somewhere before. But it's not actually where it's supposed to be. And so these pictures were all made up using these, basically. We lived in Canada when I was younger for a short time. I used to live in a city called Calgary, which was all mirror glass skyscrapers, and I was a bit obsessed with those as a teenager. And so I used to try and emulate the glass in the buildings that I'd seen in Canada, but in Leeds or various other cities. And that's where the gold pens came in. So that was where, if it all shimmers at night, as the sun goes down, it was like Dallas, that kind of sort of 80s sort of glass look. And so that's what I was trying to do. I mean, I'll pass it around, you can have a look.
So what year did you make this?
1992. And yeah, so you can see, I used to just, I'd work on several at once, so there'd be that on the go, and then at the other side of the room I'd be working with something else, and it's like doing a giant collage. So that's basically what I would do.
Where did you get the style from?
It just happened. There's no.
You have a very distinctive style, haven't you?
Yeah.
I just always wondered how you got to that style.
It just happened. It's very sort of graphic based. So this again, it's an.
Oh, David Finkel.
Oh, right. Oh, this might be on customer day. So what I've done here, again, the same again, it's just imaginary places. I never drew anything that existed, literally. That was based on Canada and mountains, and I did these like big skylines. And again, it's still in the pilot pens. I went through a phase with shipping. I used to love drawing ports and rigging on boats and lighthouses and things like that. So it was all very random how these were done.
How did you do the sky?
The sky, again, it was just on a gouache. And I literally just got a big pen until it looked something like a sky. And then I'd just varnish it. So that's what I would do with that. I think with my work, you do need to see it like that, not on the glass, because you lose the texture. Glass kills texture, doesn't it? It sort of wipes it out. So I went through what you'd call an epiphany, where I got it, basically somebody upset me. And it was a journalist, and what it was someone attacking Leeds in Canada, in a newspaper, and saying it was a grimy, horrible, run-down, disgusting place that no one should ever go to. It was like one of these rough guides to Britain done in about 1988. And so there's nothing to live for in Leeds. It's terrible, it's rubbish. And she was called Kathy Keeling. She wrote for the Calgary Sun. So I wrote a nasty letter back and said, actually, it's great here. It's booming as Leeds. It's got loads of history. And what it pushed me down was, I'm going to start painting Leeds just to show this woman that it's actually worth. There's actually something here worth coming to visit. It's not just about London, but Leeds and Manchester and Sheffield, all these northern cities across. And what you'll notice is that I went up a gear with the scale. that's why I was bringing this big portfolio in. So I started doing what I call my mega pieces, and this is one of them here. And so what I started to do was to merge Leeds and London together for the helmet. I thought, don't slag Leeds off. So what I've done, this one was done to commemorate the Royal Armouries coming in 1996, which was a really big deal at the time, because Clarence Dock, or whatever it's called this week, it's just an old dump. It was just a load of old tin sheds. I mean, I used to take loads of photographs of Leeds in the 80s, and I was the only person down there, and it was just all dead. So when we were getting like the Tower of London extension coming down here to near Crown Point Bridge, I thought, this is a really big deal. Not that it's really turned out to be one in the long term, but at the time in the 90s it was. And so I decided to do Leeds and London together. So I made the River Aire, the Thames, and so I've made Leeds on the south bank, and then London at the back. And I put the Anthony Gormley's brick man in because I was really annoyed about that. I thought we should have had that. I think that would have been so ahead of its time. But
Have you ever seen the model?
Yes, I did.
It's in the gallery. It was in the gallery for years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's
So,
fantastic.
so this took about 6 months to create. You know, it was a really sort of epic thing to. But just a bit at a time. If you imagine doing a giant jigsaw, it was very much like that. And I actually went over in 2007 to our twin city in America, Louisville, and no one knows what I didn't even know what happened. It was so embarrassing. I got this phone call saying, would you like to do an exchange to our twin city? I said, where is Louisville? I've never heard of it. Never heard of this place at all. No one knew we were twinned with Louisville. And she said, the reason I'd like you to go, they're opening a Royal Armouries Museum in Louisville. And that's why we were twinned with that city, because they had a gun obsession and cannons and stuff like that. And so I ended up, this picture took on a whole new meaning. So I did like a G-plate print of this and presented it to this woman. There was no visitors in the American version of this museum. There was no one there, just me, going around this big air-conditioned place with old cannons in it, things like that. And I said, well, who's paid for this? And they said, a billionaire whiskey magnate with an obsession with the Tower of London has built this, just as a hobby. You know, it was just absolutely ridiculous. But what they did, they had like an American slant on it, so they had the American Civil War as the reenactment rather than the jousting outside. And it was really gory to watch as well, because I had to sit through all these men being shot to pieces. It was really horrific air-conditioned auditorium, you know, where it's too cold. I'm sure you've been through that experience where you're shivering in a hot climate.
They've been promoting the armories at the train station all last week. Everyone was dressed up in feathery hats and being ye olde. So there's still
There's still a little bit there, but I think what's really quite sad about the armouries is it's never sort of become part of Leeds. It's become very much, this is us, and we're down there, and they don't interact with the city at all, really. They don't do enough. Not sort of what we were promised anyway. But this was my sort of really optimistic 1996 view that this place was going to change everything, but it didn't.
Did it change Louisville?
Well, we divorced them apparently. You can actually divorce your twin city. And this was a Leeds City Council trip where I was misled, wasn't it? Where I thought I was showing all my work in a spectacular gallery in Louisville, and I was actually in a tent in a park with 2 Russian porn photographers and a Chinese Ming a ceramicist with issues, you know, bipolar. And she sort of put her Ming vases, my pictures are at the back. Nobody could get past the vases to buy my work. I didn't sell a job. It was totally disaster.
And all the Russians went sightseeing.
Oh yeah, the Russians put up hardcore porn and left and went sightseeing and left me in this tent with my pictures of Leeds. and indescribable pictures over here, and just took off. And the thing about Kentucky is that it's a really sort of Bible bashing down in the well, it's southern US, isn't it? I was called a blasphemer. I had to go and complain. I had the work taken down. Because the Russians had gone, just disappeared. So I had it all taken down, and then it came back in a box with a health warning on it saying over 18s only, which made it worse. I actually had a queue, and all these people queuing outside to look in the box. And nobody looked at my work. So it was a bit of a disaster, really. So basically, that's as big as my work got in the mid-90s, and then you'll notice that I start to shrink down to like A2 size then. I can pass that around if you want to have a look. There you go. So I've ended up in a situation where my original work has got smaller, but I'm now doing shops and big interiors. I'm getting it sort of blown up online. So the next
There's the best image that you can sort of see.
Have you got one up there?
Yeah.
You know about the story of Marshall's Mill, don't you? And the sheep on the roof. Did you know about that? But it was actually to keep the building cool. It had grass on the top, and the sheep were up there to cut the grass. That was basically the concept. So it's to keep the building cool.
But this was real?
Yes, it actually.
Like here in Leeds?
Yeah.
It's still there.
It's got the it's got the oldest lift in the world that transported the sheep up to the roof. It's still there at the back.
So you would write me down where this is?
Yeah, definitely. It's becoming the British Library of the North. It's getting this amazing.
There's David's picture there.
Oh, it's there. That's it. That's the building there. It's down in Holberg, Granary Wharf, just south of the
I've got to
station.
say, at the minute, you can't actually see that because it's all now completely wrapped with scaffolding and
A piece of it collapsed, so it's all been restored at the moment.
So you won't be able to see those sheep.
There's no sheep anymore.
There's no sheep anymore.
No.
But what was great, it had the largest room on Earth when it was built. I think the Pentagon sort of overtook it. It was the largest man-made room on Earth when it was built. Incredible place. And it's lit by these incredible skylights that you can actually still see that sit on the top. I mean, if it was Barcelona or somewhere like that, that would be a massive tourist attraction. And yet we've got buildings of that quality that were just rotting, basically. But they're now all being restored, which is quite nice. So my work then got smaller, so I've gone back down to that sort of size now. So that's Leeds. But what I started to do was to put buildings in that haven't been built yet, which is a big gamble. So I did this in 2007, and I looked at all the planning permissions, and I thought, we've got Lumiere, we've got the Kissing Towers, we've got Bridgewater, stick them all in. And then Gordon Brown, I think, was our Prime Minister, and everything just collapsed. So I'd done the picture, and only one building actually appeared. So it's now it's a kind of Leeds as it could have been, but it's now actually happening now because we're getting all the high-rise buildings going up at the moment. And then what I also do is put buildings in that don't exist anymore. So it's almost like testing you. Oh, I recognise that. What's that doing there? So it's like a quiz. So I do like to sort of play on that. So you can actually have a look at that and think, do you recognise anything in there? And what exists now? You see, I turn it on to you now. You've got to talk to me.
That building, but
The detail is amazing.
Do you like it?
yeah, I like it.
So these are done with children's gel pens. I actually set them in varnish. You know, you were asking me about fade and can they cope with the sunlight and things like that. Well, I varnished them. So this kid's gel pen was done 16 years ago. And it looks as good now as when it was done, so in the noughties.
What's that building?
That is the, well, we used to call it the Kremlin, but we can't call it that. That's a DSS, Quarry House. It's a big government sort of agency building.
It's like a Gotham building, isn't it?
It's about Department of Pensions, isn't it?
It's something to with pensions and, yeah. Department of Work and Pensions or
Yes,
something.
DWP, Department of Work and Pensions.
It's got ads in
A sports hall in there.
This is all like big stuff. Yeah, when you sort of
I've
look
played
across.
Yeah.
And then I put Quarry Hill Flats, which has developed this sort of iconic status in Leeds history. So that's actually in the scene,
For an hour.
but was demolished in the 1970s. That building sort of there, yeah. And then that building there is the old St Anne's Cathedral, which was demolished in 1903.
Is that brush on that? Or have you sprayed that?
It's brush on.
Right.
I just use one of them wide sort of fan. I just pour the gloss varnish onto the picture. The sky is enamel like you paint on a car.
Right.
So you sort of look like tin soldiers type thing, with that humbrel.
Right.
I like the smell of that stuff. It's quite
Nostalgic.
it's actually quite, you just open a little tin and it's like, oh, this is great. It's like,
Hello.
Happy.
was it worse?
They're a big Hamlin book.
Oh yes, I thought we were looking at that the other day.
That's gone.
This is going to be a very short-lived gallery. It's going to be
Oh, the thesis gone.
It's empty too fast.
Was it thesis?
So we're just passing work around at the moment, David. We're up to 2007, and so we're just looking at. And so what has happened here? Down demolishing all this stuff. So what happened here is you'll notice that my work, as I get older, gets brighter, and it's because of the materials that I buy. And one of the things. So what started to happen around the noughties is that you could suddenly buy these. Yeah, these little pilots. So I've used the gold, all my pictures up to 2000 have gold windows in. And then I was just doing like some of that other crafters, and when I saw these, I thought, oh, this is quite interesting. And I discovered that this would work on pretty much any surface. And so, but they only had a very limited colour range of these. You could have yellow, pink, blue, and things like that. So I started to do all the windows in my buildings with these pilot gel pens in yellow. Now there's a big drawback to relying on a pen for your style of work when they stop making it. So I had this absolutely horrendous situation where I went in Hobbycraft, end of line sale, and I saw these and I thought, they're not making them anymore. So I bought all the stock, took it home, and then I ran out. And so I was in this horrendous situation where I thought, well, what am I doing? And then I had an epiphany in an awkward garden centre where I just, like you do, just looking for plants. And they have like an art set, you know the other one I mean, I don't know what it's called, this big garden centre in Ockley down by the river.
Oh, yes.
The other one I mean, Smith's, and it has like an arts bit in it, spotted beans. It was like I'd gone to heaven. It was the Sakura Jelly Roll pen from Japan. Well, that was it. There was one pack of these, and these were like the Moonlight version, which is like pastel. And they had a bigger range of colours. And so I thought, I've never looked back. This is about 13 years ago. And these now, I discovered that these now come in all variations. There's an aroma version, scented. There's a plastic version, sets like plastic. There's every version under the sun. And it's just literally changed my life.
There's like a texture to all of them, isn't there?
And there's one where you actually draw on your picture, and it's transparent. There's nothing there. You think, oh, it's broken. There's something wrong here. And it's just like this wet patch on your page, and then it changes colour and sets as plastic. Well, once I got my hands on those, there was no stopping me. It was like, oh my god, this is absolutely incredible. You know? So I started using those. And they are still in production. I think mainly because of me. And then my sister last year got me on something, and now she just bought me all these pens for my birthday. She got me onto them. I'm sure you've seen these unique Oscars. So I now sort of work with those two pens all the time. That's sort of my staple, really. That's what I work with. So I'll show you some more work. I still use the rotring over the top. I've never stopped using the German rotring pens. I still think they're the best. So I'm now going to right, there's I'm going to test your geographical skills now. You've got to tell me where this city is. See if you can guess. So, where do you think that is? Where do you think that could be? Do you recognise it? It's not in Britain.
Seattle?
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, it's Seattle, yeah. Now, do you see what I mean about that text?
That's a giveaway, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And they don't acknowledge him in that city, you know. There's not even a plaque for him. There's nothing, because it was a drugging. So they've got this really weird city council that don't acknowledge him. So the only acknowledgement to Kurt Cobain is some fans have decorated a bench near the house where he died. And that's it. It's really strange. They've got a pop museum called Mo Pop that you can buy t-shirts from it, but the city of Seattle don't acknowledge him. So I stuck him in the pictures anyway. But you know, I was just telling you about, you know, the jelly roll that's set in plastic. So if you have a look on that one, and the other thing I've started to use is PVA glue. Actually painting that over the top, letting it set like a varnish, and then working over the top. And I've also used a lot of stick-on lines. So that building there is the Amazon headquarters, and it's the well-being sphere. So we went to Seattle on holiday in 2018, just for a few days, but we were based in Canada. And the Amazon headquarters isn't on the tourist trail, it's not mentioned. It was just someone in the street saw us taking photographs. Said, have you seen our spheres? So I said, what are you on about? She goes, it's the de-stress centre for Amazon staff at lunchtime when they listen to bird song in these big glass domes. Oh, you must go and see these, they're incredible. And that's what that structure is there. It's just, you basically all get 10 minutes each listening to birds with like running water in this glass thing.
Don't go out to the Amazon factories that are outskirts.
It doesn't apply in the Amazon factories, yeah, I know. No, so that's that. So that's got sort of my colour palette that I'm sort of using at the moment on that. And I also stick on things as well, and notice there's a lot of bits and bobs stuff on there. And then my most recent thing that I've started to do is I'm now working on an even smaller scale physically, but blowing up to the size of buildings. You know, I've just wrapped Debenhams at the white rose.
You can sort of picture
Yeah. So, with the great thing about digital reproduction now is I can work on a small scale and then just do a really high quality copy. And so what you see there is just these. So this is the Debenhams wrap. And then we just scanned it all in, printed it onto vinyl, and then just blew it up all around the building.
It's a glitter.
Just mix it. So there's also. So that's the actual vinyl thing there. And at the launch we all caught COVID. It's ironic, isn't it? This is a while ago, about 6 weeks ago, but we all caught COVID at the launch for this thing. Which was
So this is hand drawn.
that's all hand drawn, and then we
Then
scanned
scanned.
it, and then we blew it up onto the vinyl.
Alright.
Yeah.
You're not working on
I couldn't work on that scale.
you're not working on
No. So that's basically what I was going to say. Do you have any questions, anything you want to ask, anything you want to know, anything at all?
So, what's the? Is there any cities you'd like to visit, or any cities you would like to make an amalgamation of? You know, like ones that you've not tackled yet. I mean, because I know you did Kuala Lumpur as a commission.
Kuala Lumpur was the last of them. Yeah, Leeds and Kuala Lumpur and Nottingham, which is the most bizarre. And then I did one of the things that I've been doing is people's life stories as a big picture, where every place I've ever been to or lived in, I make it into a giant collage. And I got 2 dentists, and I had Dodworth in Barnsley. I had North Manchester and Leeds. That was a strange combination to try and put into a big cityscape. I did Leeds Prague.
Oh yes,
Leeds Prague is one of the earliest ones I did. And again, I like to put cities together that don't have any relationship whatsoever. I think it makes it so much.
If you come to Berlin.
Yeah. I've done Berlin as a single city, but a long time ago. A long time ago, about 92. So the Berlin Wall was still there. We actually saw it, but with holes in it. But all this has just evolved over time. All the jobs and commissions have all been haphazard, haven't they?
And you've got the Hilton at Hampton.
Yeah, that was a really strange one. I've done a picture which was hung at the Civic Trust on the corner in their head office, and this guy came from China, and I like that. Gave me a business card, and then he said, "I'll ring you in 6 months." And he showed me this picture. He said, "I'd like you to do the lobby of the hotel. We're doing the new Hilton." And I didn't hear anything. And often that does happen when you're an artist. You'll people will be really enthusiastic. Never hear anything. Next thing I got a phone call. We're ready to start construction. Can we use your work to wrap the building site? So that was the first sign that something was happening. Then he said, "Right, we're ready to do the lobby." So I did the lobby piece, and then he came back and he said, "Can you do 120 bedrooms?" And I've just gone on holiday
This
for a
is
month.
yeah, that's the lobby there, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you do 120 bedrooms, 2 pictures in each? And I thought, I don't have enough work. All printed on canvas. But I thought it was really nice that like a big hotel chain like that would come seeking out Leeds-based artists and saying, "I want the interior." You know, like going to Premier Inn and it's all generic, isn't it? It's all purple. And it looks like someone's just thrown some paint at a canvas and they've hung it there. He said, "No, at our hotels, we go and look for artists in the city. We want people to know when they wake up in the morning they're in Leeds or in Liverpool or London." I think that's really nice. I think it's a nice selling point.
They even did the carpets in your clothes, didn't they?
Now, I wasn't told about that. When it opened, because I don't know if you've been in the Hampton by Hilton Hotel, but it looks like a big shipping container. It's just a big grey box next to the window. It's all grey. There isn't an ounce of colour on that building at all. And then you go inside and it's all nice stuff. It's just, you need sunglasses when you go inside. Yeah. So the next thing I'm working on is Wellington Place. I'm doing like a big hoarding for them next. So that, you know that old lifting hoist? There's like an old piece of the railway station in the middle and they've built all the new buildings around.
There's just one left, like they want
Yeah.
to make a restaurant, I heard. So.
That was a plan, but not now. It's changed. But that's something. That's the next thing I'm working on is down there. So it's really exciting. There's a lot going on in Leeds.
We just need to get some sculpture there for me.
Public sculpture, that's right.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else you want to ask?
I have a question for both of you. So,
Yeah.
do you always only draw or whatever, or sketch from life, or do you ever take pictures to then go home and finish it off?
Well, I have two styles. The one I showed you this afternoon is I do from life. So I'll go and sketch with my sketchbook out wherever it is. I feel like that's my discipline for that, and I always do that. I don't take a photograph and do that. I do finish them off at home, so I'll put some more detail on and things like that.
But from memory,
From
right?
yeah, and I'll take a picture of where I was and I'll use that. But the coloured stuff that I do, the pencil drawings, I do that in the studio, so I do that because it takes a lot longer. So I use a photograph for that. I take photographs and stuff and do sketches and things and figure out how I'm going to lay it out. So a combination of both, I think, really.
What sort of paper is it in this book? 'Cause it's obviously a kind of paper that will take watercolour. What kind is it?
Well, I found, well, that one, the big one is, I think it's a cold press moleskin book, and I found that it did wrinkle
Yeah.
when I put a lot of water on it, and that's their, more or less their top of the range kind of thickest paper they do that you can draw on without, because I draw in pen, so the wrinkliness of the paper, you know, the kind of bumpiness of the paper affects it, so you can't have too much of a bumpy paper. But that book there, which is the latest one, which through a lot of research and things like that, I found it's a New Zealand company called Etcher, and they do this really nice, well, this kind of range of papers, both hot and cold press. That's a hot press smooth paper, but it's really thick and takes watercolors really well. It's really robust, you know. I put lots of water on and you know, ink and everything, and it's never wrinkled. So that it'd be my absolute go-to one after finding it. And they do all sorts of different sizes as well. They're quite expensive. They're a bit more expensive than moleskin, but
They have to come from New Zealand.
there's some you get them online. You can get them from. I think I bought it exactly from there. I think I bought it from their site, but you can get it from like good art sites and things like that. So just
What's the name?
Etcher.
Etcher.
Yeah.
What I tend to do is work on board, you know, because that makes me when you're using sort of enamel paints and sticking things on. But just down to your question about photographs, a lot of my stuff is just imagination and memory. But I do take a lot of photographs. I'm a very keen photographer, so I do a lot of archiving of Leeds, old pictures and things like that. So photographs definitely play a part. I mean, what's been nice about Sketch Club is it disciplines you to actually go out and draw it in reality. You know, rather than using photographs, it's actually quite good to draw the actual city out the window, isn't it? It really makes you sort of look and sort of,
I think that's one thing that's really good about sketching is it really makes you look at things.
It does, yeah. You see sort of another side.
You go and take a photo of something, you don't really see it, you just take a photo. But when you're sketching, you really study all the bits of it, you get to know it, and you remember, and it's a record of it, and you really remember where you've been, really. I think that's a really good part of drawing and sketching.
It is.
So it's a memory, John.
With life drawings, it's the same. You're actually really studying.
I think personally, I think life drawing is the hardest type of drawing because it's the thing with buildings and drawing outside and drawing landscapes and things like that. You can kind of get away with things.
Yeah,
you can sort of make things up, or you can sort of
drawing.
use a bit of artistic license and stuff like that.
I haven't been in that class where you have to draw a straight line and you
Yeah.
straight lines. So for me, Sketch Club is really challenging because there's straight lines, perspective,
Yeah.
and detail,
Yeah.
and my eyesight isn't that good. So it's a challenge for me to do any of these things, and I really take my hat off to the two of them for the incredible detail on the straight lines.
Thank you.
I often get questions asking if I'm on drugs or something. And I said no, not at all. A cup of coffee and a cream cake, you know, that's about my limit. I just blame it on the materials instead of getting bright.
But to your point, I think life drawing is really difficult because I think with, like I was going to say, with sketching out, you can get away with things, but with life drawing, people look at it and understand the proportion of people's bodies, and they can tell when you got it wrong. Even if it's a little bit, they can tell you've got it wrong.
There's a lot of the weight of history with life drawing, and people have been drawing the human figure in a certain classical way for a long time. So every time you're drawing a figure in a pose that's probably, you know, could be a classical pose, you've got hundreds of years of reference of the weight of that having to deal with rather than perhaps something that's more.
It's hard to do artistic license with a person. You can with the building, and because people aren't really aware of where it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
But when it's a person, it's very noticeable, isn't it?
Yeah.
The arm's
You've got
not
an
right.
extra
The
window,
hands, I
not
think,
so
of an
bad.
artist.
I've got an extra leg in.
I guess you've got sort of analogies. You've got it's like with a poem, or if you're writing a sonnet, you've got a certain structure, or if you're writing a shopping list. I'm sure there's a good analogy for that.
But the thing about Sketch Club is we really did want it so that people weren't under pressure to draw a certain way. I think that's the success of it, really, is that you can just do whatever you want.
Do you think that's one of the...
I must start getting out there. So the last few months seems a bit hectic.
Yes. Not surprised.
Do you think there's certain benefits to being self-taught in that capacity, that you don't feel that you have to follow specific rules?
I had a very interesting experience, and I was talking to Roy yesterday about where art college was my nemesis. It was horrific because in a way I got into art college with all my drawings I'd done at home, self-taught. It was all wonderful, and I got into art college, and the minute I started the course, they did everything in their power to drum it out of me. It was like they almost wanted a blank canvas. And so I was almost at a disadvantage because I'd drawn already. It was really weird what happened to me. So my experience of art college wasn't good. And I actually changed track and stopped drawing and went into photography for years. And I just didn't draw anything. But then came back in my mid-20s. But I went to art college when it was all new romantic, and you had to look like David Bowie and all this. It was just all about what colour your hair was, and the tutors were very much into trendy students. If you had a CNA jumper on and some coloured trousers, you were boring. And it was like, I remember my first day at Jacob Craig, and my mum said, "Did you enjoy it?" I said, "I want to go back." Everyone's got purple hair, and I feel a bit. It's a bit scary. It was really intimidating. I mean, I was taught by a woman in a toga with wild hair that used to shout and scream at you. She took my pen off me and said, "You'll draw with a stick. Let yourself go," and all this carry on. So this isn't why I came to art college. I wanted to sort of get better at what I was doing already.
Yeah.
Not look at a Canva and do automatic drawing with my eyes shut and all this stuff. It was really very much like that in the 80s. I'm sure it's a lot better now, but it was pretty horrendous when I was there. So the photography was a dream. I really enjoyed it.
I did a graphic design course, so it wasn't a fine art. It wasn't a fine art course. So everything I learned at uni was all to do with graphic design. I was a set type.
So you didn't have to go down this wacky route, but
no, we were set briefs. It was very professional. But we did have an art teacher, a life drawing teacher, who was amazing. He's fantastic at drawing from life, and I can't remember his full name, but we used to call him Len. And he's actually he's quite a famous artist.
Len, I remember him. He was there when I was there.
He was absolutely fantastic. In fact, he's got one of his drawings in the Headcloth Museum in Wakefield. He was quite famous. He sadly died but he was brilliant, but he was also very strict. He used to come round and say, "Your angles are," he was Pennsylvania or somewhere, and your angles are right, Martin. Dropping our knuckles with a ruler and stuff like that. But it was fantastic, and you learned a lot from him. But his whole thing was about the purity of the line. And about just drawing one line to describe it, not lots of shading or anything, just one line to describe shape. And he used to like the workings out, so if you drew a line and it wasn't right, you would cover it up with chalk, white chalk, and draw it again, and cover that up with chalk. And it's actually the white lines and the way that it was drawn was the actual nice thing about it, because it felt spontaneous. You could see you working it out. And that's why I always like to look at artist sketchbooks and preparation work, because you can see how their mind works and how they figured it out.
It's
and
quite
round.
important, really, isn't it? To
And I
understand
love
how it's
that.
come about. Yeah.
When you can see that kind of action, you know, to get to somewhere, it's really interesting to me. So I think you can celebrate your mistakes.
Well, you need to make mistakes to learn,
You
to
know,
be quite honest.
I mean, there's lots of mistakes in my drawings.
I particularly
just carry
like
on.
that one where you said, was it crap boat drawing?
Is that the title?
That says it on it.
Crap boat drawing.
I think one of the
I've got
dangers is
titles
people
like
are put
that.
under pressure to achieve some kind of amazing end result straight away, and so you're immediately put under pressure, and that can be off-putting, can't it? You've got to create something wonderful straight away. It's just you can't.
And big, I like to initial comment about that, make it small, because when it's small it's not that big of a deal. Because not just in art, but everywhere, like some people like this tends to be this giant something. It's like, well, you know, you start little and then.
Yeah, I think it's just. I was chatting to a guy actually at the Sketch Club, and he was a designer actually. He'd not done any drawing for years. And he brought this really big pad with him, and he was trying to fill the whole pad.
I saw him doing that in the
I said to him, "I'm doing the pool." I said, you know, and one thing I've learned is like you can be intimidated by a massive piece of paper, and I think if you draw smaller, you're not as intimidated by it, and then you can kind of get into it a little bit more, and it feels like a little bit more manageable.
I was put through this hellish experience as a 17-year-old just starting at Jacob Kramer, where this woman in a toga took my little sketchbook away, because I used to work on that size. You're sort of comfortable with the size, aren't you? Took that away, took my lovely pen away that I just bought at Dinsdale's, you know, a little rotary pen. So that is so tight. And she just broadcast this to about 30 other people that you never met before, you know, that you're all sat in the studio with. She came back with an A0 piece of paper and a stick and some black paint and said, release your mind or something. I don't know what she was on, but it was the most terrifying experience because I had to sort of stand up and try and work in a loose style. And when you're used to using a tight sort of drawing on a small scale, it's like your worst nightmare. It's just terrible. And then she'd scream at you if you didn't do it right, you know. Relax! I'm sure it's not taught like that now.
No, there are cases where it is, because I've had tutors saying to me, oh, you want to be very loose here. And I said, actually, I am far too loose. I really want to tighten up.
You actually want to tighten up a bit,
yeah. We have to tighten up.
Let's do the tailor, because it could have worked for someone really beautifully, but you hate it, right? So it's not about like one way works for.
Everybody has their own sort of way, don't they?
And some of them don't exist. I think that's what I find in art and creativity in general. That we seem to start from some sort of schematic and archetypes of like, this is what has been done in the past, and automatically your brain is locked, anchored to that. And then you start just going around that. But actually, if you didn't, maybe, if you started just expressing, maybe you would go off completely, you know, to something that doesn't exist yet. And that's the danger. I guess you need some basics, but does it not sort of keeps you stuck? Because everyone has different minds. Some people are very strong and they know what they want, they go off, but a lot of us get stuck in kind of like this, something that someone started, and we think like, I feel like I'm imprisoned now in this.
Yeah.
Because I don't give myself permission to go anywhere else, because I don't know what that else is, because I keep coming back to this.
Thank you for coming.
I will do. I think, for me, it's visiting art galleries, looking at people's work.
Oh yeah,
massively. I think that's the biggest thing any artist or anybody who likes drawing and painting can do. It makes you go and it makes you realise that there isn't just one style. People do lots of different things. When I went to see the Van Gogh exhibition in Amsterdam, I've seen his work and the way that he just did, kind of the Dutch style of painting for years and years and years. This very sort of dark, slightly depressing, potato picking style kind of art for years and years. And then all of a sudden he went to the south of France, discovered the sunlight, and discovered a new kind of painting. And the way that it just explodes, in 10 years, he created all that work. It's just so inspiring. And just seeing that he didn't care about what he did and how he painted, he just did it because he liked doing it and he wanted to capture light. Fantastic. And I think one of the best things is to look at other people's work and be inspired by just how other people find their own way of expressing themselves. And I think that's the best thing about art is the fact that it's not just about people who can draw things that look realistic. It's not about that. It's about expression. And if you feel that the expression is from somebody inside that actually feels genuine, then I think there's a real connection.
Well, on that note, fantastic. Thank you so much, guys.
That's a pleasure. It's been really nice.
I really enjoyed it, actually. I'm a bit terrified.
It's great to have you here with the work on the walls and all the extra behind-the-scenes sketchbooks and visual feast.
Yeah, I think a round of applause is cool. It's a standing ovation, but a round of applause.
I really appreciate you listening to it.
It's nice that you come to us.
Some snacks are missing and some wine, though.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Well, the next opening, exhibition opening is on Thursday, the 5th of May, and there'll be some drinks then.
There's always wine in here.
What's that?
There's always got some wine.
Always got some wine. Always got some wine for the openings, yeah. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Thanks for letting me spontaneously join this.
It's great. I'm really glad you came in.
You get to sign up for it.
We did have a ticketing system, but don't
One seat for you, mate. Yeah, always for you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Just work.